PortUp, the challenge we are trying to tackle with this project is to focus on ESG reporting and some of the challenges it brings to the real estate in general. And PortUp focuses on basically flagging buildings within portfolios that have an inefficient energy consumption. So being able to find buildings across your entire portfolio in a country, which buildings should you get rid of, which should you sell, or perhaps
or even get an understanding of all different data points that are attached to your building.
Yeah. So moving on. So we're a team of 3, and well, our intention is really to, as I mentioned, flag buildings in the portfolios with inefficient energy consumption. So the outcome we tried to come with is that tool that can basically assist in ESG reporting for energy. So creating sources that from existing data and making it usable for pension funds. So it basically means that pension funds can upload documentation in different formats. They have databases, they have PDF files, they have paper in their drawers. So there's a lot of different information that is not available and can be easily used.
I mean, the information exists. The information exists, but as everything in the world, the sort of data is very siloed. So even though the information exists, it's not really aggregated in a central place, and it's not really surfaced to the user in the way that is simple to use and easy to understand.
Yes. So we made a quick market research, asking some of the mentors here, what are some of the key problems in real estate? And they said that, well, ESG reporting is tough, and here there's an opportunity to efficiently assess potential risks in their portfolio. Around 2,000 owners in Denmark have, a portfolio with 50+ buildings. And as you mentioned, Oleg, data sits in different registers and in different registries, which makes it difficult. And basically, being able to find places where you can minimize operation costs. So being able to source and analyze portfolio documents is critical to understanding the different potentials. And also you have the energy mark, which, has to be re-evaluated every 5 years. So going on. So what we've tried to come up with is a solution that taps into the different actors in real estate. So we, of course, have the pension funds who sit on a lot of the buildings. Then we have advisory, we have architects, engineers, and construction. And we also have investors who invest in a lot of the technology. So we thought that we wanted to build a tool that everyone can use to basically make a market research and plug into, tap into that. So go to the next. So we have the scattered data inputs, and what we came up with was basically a model that can analyze different types of data and create a centralized reference point that goes into interface. So it means when the pension funds log in and upload the different addresses of the buildings, then they can actually go in and click in and see, well, which of my buildings are flagged as inefficient. So,
or get an understanding of the building performance and different key indicators that are associated with a specific building. So to do that, we started from scratch and we built this interface that is geared towards usability, first and foremost. And we've considered the technologies that currently exist and what are the possible user journeys through the product. And as we all know, LLMs is kind of a very democratic solution. So the idea of chatting with an interface is very attractive at the moment. So we built this component that is, that might be the starting point. So you are a portfolio manager, you want to get into the interface and start asking questions about your existing buildings. Another starting point of the journey is through the search. So you might, come up with a query, and then the interface will show it. The map is also a very flexible control, so then it shows you, all of the buildings that are in your portfolio in the map view, and then basically the project. So if you are, your portfolio view, you can have project A, B, and C. So we focused on the project just because it's very easy to start with. So let's say you choose a project 1, it zooms in. Then once you're here, you kind of want to get more of a context. So when you click on this, then we have another view that is, so we're basically thinking like from general to specific. And the next level of the specificity here is the BIM model. So it's starting to load. So you have the BIM model in your interface and it's available. You can select different elements. You can cut sections, you can get the information that is attached to different elements, etc. And then, so that's the 3D view, and this is a building of a blocks hub. So, very appropriate. And then here on the right, we have a data view. And the data view at the moment is assembled through aggregating and through tapping into the publicly available data sources. And basically what you can see here is that you can quickly start understanding what sort of improvements you can make to your building in order to generate some savings. So here you can see that if you replace a light bulb on the back stair and the basement, you will get some annual savings in the form of 2,800 Danish crowns. And then the investment would be 1,000 Danish crowns, and then that's an obvious choice. So then you go there. And then depending on the building, you might have sort of more data sources available or less. So this particular building that we used, we have 4 data points that we're surfacing at the moment. And then the other building, let's say this one, you have only 1. But the idea is that this tool is flexible and it's able to grow. So then you kind of start introducing more and more data streams that are piped into this interface that are kind of giving this very comprehensive view of a project to the portfolio managers. And now let's talk about the data and how it's aggregated and how exactly we're processing it.
Yeah, so basically we're utilizing state-of-the-art web technologies. So the web we know today is you go to a web page, there is a document, you can browse through it, you can see information. The new web, the next web, is the web of data, where basically anything will have a data point, and that's what we're utilizing here. This is just a small sample of our data set, where you see we have our building here. It has a geographical location. We have a reference to maybe there might be an image that we find about this building. We have a reference here to an energy saving proposal. We can see some metadata about this energy saving proposal. And here again, it has references to a BIM model that actually holds these objects. So it's being allowed because of this grid-like graph data technology sitting underneath, meaning also that one data provider can just provide a subset as long as they use the same naming of the nodes, so you can combine it with the rest. And that is basically the dream of the linked data web of data.
Yeah, close up. But basically, so basically the problem that we're trying to solve is that the data exists. It's just not available. And when it is available, the journey through the data is not as simplified and as user-friendly as it could be.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions?
All right, thank you. Going back to the kind of original objective of assessing the buildings with inefficient energy consumption, but kind of the demo you showed, the data points are quite thin from that perspective still. So how do you kind of start getting more data to really answer the original question?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, the point is that the project can accept more data. So it's not really up to us to service more data. I think it's up to pension fund, because they're the consumers of data and they must be interested in getting a comprehensive view of their stock. So it's our sort of job to build an infrastructure that is flexible enough to accept the data streams. And this is what we're focusing on.
All right, fair enough.
One question, you said that all it requires is that the providers use the same structure on their nodes. Isn't that a major problem, because this never happens?
So actually not, it's quite flexible, and that's also actually supporting the user story, different interfaces to the data. I mean, if you just So one provider would use the latitude longitude as the identifier for the information, and then we can find a lot of contextual information from there. So that could be the starting point you hook up to when you have that from another data set. So basically, it's a matter of standardizing APIs, and we're already seeing this. One of the problems we had, and why we have a very thin layer of data, is that the one with the energimærker, there is an API, but we could write them and get access on Monday. Or we could build a web scraper that would take some time. We're only 3 people.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is possible, and it's only very limited what you need to do on top of the APIs actually to make it available.
Furthermore, to add to it, is that we're all aware that a lot of data exists in Excel sheets, right? So basically, a lot of it is aggregated by hand. So yes, we're going to focus on as much information that we can get automatically, but then there's this other, sort of mountain of stuff that needs to be put into some sort of Excel sheet and then piped into here as well. And then basically, the way that we looked at the interface as well, so we have this idea of providers and consumers. So this right now, the user journey that we've showed to you is mostly focusing on the consumer end, and then it could be extended with the visualizations, etc., on the right in the side drawer. But then on the left, if you can imagine the side drawer, that could be focusing on the providers. So then we can provide input controls that allow people to sort of put the data into the system. So then you have end-to-end. So you have some of the data streams that are automatically available, and then the other ones will be just inputted through the interface, in the user-friendly way. So, yeah.
But also, just to add on that, I think the possibility with this is that, as we've seen, a lot of the data is in different silos, and being able to collect it really enables another dimension for, pension funds to start trading these buildings, because one of the problem is that they're trying to reduce the operation costs, and sometimes based on the location, because you have different workforces, you have people that operate these buildings, and sometimes it actually makes sense to trade these buildings, and gathering this information actually enables a lot of that. So we've got a lot of questions after doing this project.
But basically, what we focused on, within 2 days, is that, to build in as much flexibility into the product as possible. So flexibility on the choice of the back-end technologies that we're going to use, the databases that we're going to use, and the front-end technologies, and the way that we've composed the interface and the components, etc. So basically, everything was built from the ground up, and flexibility was one of the values, maybe the most important value in consideration, and therefore everything turned out the way it did.
So what would be the true source or the source of truth for operational data on a building? What would be the?
We actually like to, in our company, see it as, we always talk about the single source of truth, right? Here it's more about fetching everything we know and then providing the single view of truth. So the data sources, they all store their truth, and you as a knowledge worker, it's up to you to go and see. So we're providing the overview, I think, more.
Yeah.
But again, look, for example, the energy marks. You have a portfolio of 2,000 buildings. Every time a tenant leaves within 5 years, they're being renewed.
Yeah.
You're not putting that into your system every time this happens. Wouldn't you rather just fetch it at the data source and make sure that you get it from there?
So my reflections is, the true consumption of the building over the 5-year period or the period, right? We're seeing a lot of startups addressing that, just, true consumption of energy, etc. And what they might be. Energy marks, energy frame calculations are for most in part a theoretical task.
Yep.
Not necessarily, rooted in the truth. And since we are looking at buildings that are being recertified every 5 years, then maybe, if we could tap into the source called consumption data.
Yeah, and in Denmark, you have to have access to electricity consumption, for example. Then you need to map it, of course, to what is actually consuming that electricity in the building, and that's becoming harder. But again, if you put more information into the data model, giving us access to some of your sensors, so we know that it's actually this air handling unit consuming the electricity, The more you put on top, the more fine-grained picture we can give you of the asset. But if you don't have anything, it's going to be based on a polygon and some knowledge about buildings built in that era of time. So, yeah.
Another thing is that directionality is also important. So maybe you'll not have a comprehensive view coming from all of the data, but here, I think even if you have a little bit of data, it's already better state of things than what we're currently experiencing. So I think that, you know, if we just start moving in this direction, every time we increase fidelity of the data that we surface into the user, of course, it's a huge win, but we have to start somewhere. And I think what this provides is a great starting point. You know, it's pleasant to be in this interface, it's pleasant to use, and, you know, it's taking into consideration all of the sort of advancements that are currently available.
So if you had had the API access Friday morning, we would have seen a full flow today?
Yeah, so actually we found that it was quite flexible. Like you were working on the front end mainly, I was working a bit on the back end. It was like, here's a bit more data, here's the query, and it just fit right in.
Yeah, it's end to end now. Like it's not a PDF or it's not like a very small prototype. Like this is something that, you know, exists. It's a front end technology, React. It's a back end linked data, you know, graph data. So it's real. Like I think it's the beginning of an evolution of a product that's kind of starting to move in that direction.
Yeah, I love the choice of modern technologies.
Thank you.